Hi boys and girls, today we're going to read the story, Why Should I Recycle? It is written and illustrated by Mike Gordon. Let's begin. Why should I recycle? In my family, we recycle rubbish or garbage. We return things so they can be used again. So here is the whole family by the recycling bin for glass objects. And they have boxes and boxes of glass jars and bottles, and they're recycling inside. I have one just outside the corner of my street. Have you done that before as well? We didn't always recycle. Before, we threw everything away in the garbage can or the rubbish bin. On our way to school, we always pass by Mr. Jones's house. Mr. Jones is our teacher. One day, we saw him putting a special box with cans and bottles and paper by the gate. Hey, Mr. Jones. Good morning. What are you doing? This box is for recycling. All these things are taken away and used again, said Mr. Jones. What's recycling? Mr. Jones said, I'll explain at school. In class, Mr. Jones asked us what we did with our rubbish. We put it in the rubbish bin, or the garbage can. It's just old garbage. Mr. Jones said that rubbish, or garbage, contained lots of useful things that can be recycled or used again. But why should I recycle old glass bottles? Mr. Jones took the class to a recycling center. It had separate places for bottles, metal tins, plastic things, clothes, and paper. What do you think happens to all the glass that goes in here? Asked Mr. Jones. That's a good question because we recycle the glass bottles, but after, what happens to it when we put it into this glass recycling bin? I don't know. Well, said Mr. Jones, it all goes to the factory and it gets broken down to make new shiny bottles. So here they're on a little conveyor belt. All the glass is being broken down into tiny, tiny pieces. And then they make it again into a new glass bottle. And guess what happens to all the metal tins that go in here? Asked Mr. Jones. So these are all the cans, like the Coca-Cola cans and the Sprite and the Fanta cans. Well, they go to the factory and they get melted down to make new metal things, such as scooters and bicycles. Oh, wow, said the children. They didn't know that with the old metal tins. I'm going to show you one like this. You can burn them down, melt them, and then after it becomes bicycles and scooters and other metal things. And what about paper, old paper, and the plastic that goes in here and here? Mr. Jones asked. Well, all the paper all gets shredded and used to make new books and comics. So all the old paper that you've used before, when you recycle it, it gets torn up into little tiny pieces, and then they make new paper with this. And with that, you get to make new books and new comic books and new paper. All these things from rubbish we just throw away. So he was like, wow, you get to make new comics and new books just by all these, by recycling all these old papers that we throw away? Mr. Jones said yes. This plastic can be used to make all kinds of things, including clothes. You might just be wearing some, said Mr. Jones. So apparently, some plastic things. So for example, when I'm finished with this water bottle, you can recycle the water bottle. And then after with that, they can even use the plastic to make new clothes. Did you know that? So this little girl said, so why do we waste garbage? Or why do we waste waste? Well, most of the garbage or rubbish that we put in the bin gets buried in huge dumps that spoil the countryside. It's good to recycle as much as you can, said Mr. Jones. So normally all the garbage that we can't recycle, it goes to the countryside far, far away, and they dump it into these huge, huge mountains of garbage called landfills, and or into these little holes called landfills, and then it becomes a huge, huge, huge mountain, and it smells and it's stinky, and it's a place that you don't want to be at. So the girl who's smelling that stinky garbage says, so what else can we recycle? Well, we can recycle old clothes, books, and toys that you don't want anymore. Instead of throwing them into the garbage can or the bin, you can take them to the charity shops or secondhand shops. So a charity shop or a secondhand shop is a shop where they sell used things. So things that are used by other people that they don't need anymore, they bring them to the charity shop, and then you can go to the shop and buy things that are used but that are still good. The food that we buy at supermarkets comes in lots of packages that can be used again. So for example, at the supermarket, they bought a jug of milk, and now they're finished with the plastic jug. So you can either recycle it into the recycling bin, or you can reuse it and create something new again with that. So for example, the little girl said, don't waste this milk jug, Mom. I'm going to change it into a pot to grow my flowers in. Hey, that's a great idea. So she took off the labels and she put some nice stickers on it. She cut off the top and then she planted a flower in it. It's a really great way to recycle something old and change it into something new and useful. I told Mom and Dad about our trip to the recycling center. Now we buy recycled things at the shops. Recycled paper helps to save trees. So when you go to the supermarket, you can actually find many, many things that have been recycled and made into new things. So it usually says eco on the product, and that is a good product to buy because it helps the environment, and it's also it doesn't leave as much waste for the environment. So here the girl, she's buying toilet paper, but it's recycled toilet paper. So recycled paper helps to save trees, and they're looking at all the labels to see which ones are made of recycled materials and choosing to buy those things instead. We always recycle our plastic bags too. So, for example, when they're at the supermarket, they bring their own plastic bags that they saved from their last trip to the supermarket, or they use cloth bags. So bags made of cloth so that you can reuse it again and again and again. We can also recycle everything at home. Fruits and vegetable peelings get recycled in our new compost heap. So did you know that a lot of food things that you eat, like old banana peels, newspapers, and also like food things, you can also recycle them if you have something called a compost. So what happens is that you put the food and the bones and things like that into the compost heap, and there are some little worms inside, and then with the worms and with all that food, they change it over time into a really healthy soil that you can then use for your garden to grow flowers and plants and vegetables. So it's a really great way to recycle your food waste instead of putting it into the rubbish bin. The compost helps my mom's prized vegetables to grow. So that's exactly what happened here. The little boy's mom, with the compost, the nice soil that they make with the compost, she plants lots of vegetables with that soil, and then she makes some really great vegetables, which also they're so nice that she wins prizes. Now we recycle so much garbage and rubbish that there's hardly any left for the bin. So they recycle so much that they barely have anything to throw out, which is great because you don't want to add more garbage to the landfill. Recycling is kind to nature. It's being nice to our planet. It saves money and it's fun. So over here, you see they're at the beach, and Mummy reused that old milk jug, and she cut off the top, filled it with water, and now she's going to use it to help her family make a sandcastle. So that is another great idea, to reuse things that we have around the house. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the story.